My sister didn't even look up from her phone when I told her. She was sitting at the kitchen counter, scrolling with one hand, coffee growing cold beside her, legs crossed like she owned the room. I stood across from her holding the envelope, thick, cream-colored, embossed with gold lettering I'd traced with my thumb a dozen times already. "I got invited to an award ceremony," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She snorted. Actually snorted. Then she laughed, short, sharp, dismissive. "We don't have time for stupid awards," she said, eyes still glued to her screen. "You know that, right?" The words hit harder than I expected, not because I didn't anticipate them, but because some small, foolish part of me had hoped, just once, she'd surprise me. I swallowed. "It's important," I said quietly. That finally made her look up. She gave me a once-over, the kind that scans for flaws instead of listening. "Important to who?" she asked. "You?" I nodded. Her mouth twisted. "That figures." Growing up, my sister was the loud one, the confident one, the one teachers remembered, the one relatives bragged about at holidays. I was the other one, the background, the helper, the one who didn't make waves. And somewhere along the way, she decided that meant anything I cared about was automatically smaller, less serious, less worthy, less real. I tried again. "It's a national award," I said. "They're recognizing my work." She laughed louder this time. "For what?" she asked. "Doing your little projects?" They weren't little. They were years of late nights, of unpaid labor, of choosing integrity when shortcuts were easier. But I didn't say that. I never did. "Well," she continued, setting her phone down at last, "I already told Mom we're busy that night. And honestly, I don't feel like sitting in some auditorium clapping for people I don't know." Something inside me tightened. "You already told Mom?" I asked. She shrugged. "Yeah, we have that dinner with Mark's parents, remember?" I remembered. She'd mentioned it once, casually, like it was tentative. "I thought that was flexible," I said. She rolled her eyes. "Not everything revolves around you." There it was, the familiar sting. I stared down at the invitation again. The date, the location, my name printed clearly in elegant script. I'd worked so hard for this moment, not for applause, for acknowledgement, for proof to myself that I wasn't invisible. "You don't have to come," I said, finally. She smirked. "Good, because I wasn't planning to." She picked up her phone again, conversation over. Just like that. Later that evening, I sat alone in my room, the invitations spread out on my bed like evidence. I replayed the moment over and over, the sneer, the laugh, the way she'd decided, on my behalf, that it didn't matter. I felt foolish for being hurt. She'd always been like this. When I graduated, she'd said, "Well, at least someone has a degree now." When I got my first real job, she joked, "So when do you get promoted to something serious?" When I stayed late nights working on community projects, she called it playing hero. This was just consistent. Still, it hurt. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. "Your sister says you're upset. What happened?" I stared at the screen. I could tell the truth. I could explain how dismissive she'd been, how small she'd made me feel. Or I could do what I'd always done, smooth it over. "It's nothing," I typed, "just a misunderstanding." The words tasted bitter, but I sent them anyway. The award ceremony was 3 days away. I hadn't told many people about it, partly because I didn't want to jinx it, partly because I was tired of managing other people's reactions. Still, the organizers kept emailing. Reminders, schedules, dress code. Each message made my heart beat faster. This was real, and whether my sister thought it was stupid or not, it mattered. The night before the ceremony, my sister walked past my room and paused. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "You're still going to that thing?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Alone." She sighed dramatically. "I just don't get why you need all this validation." I looked up at her. "I don't need it," I said, "but I earned it." She scoffed. "Awards don't mean anything. Real success speaks for itself." I held her gaze. "So why does it bother you?" I asked. Her expression flickered, just for a second, then hardened. "It doesn't," she said quickly. "I just think it's embarrassing." That did it. I felt something snap. Not loudly, not explosively, just decisively. "I'm proud of myself," I said, "even if you're not." She stared at me like I'd spoken out of turn. Then she laughed again. "Wow, okay, guess you're really feeling yourself." She walked away, shaking her head. That night, I barely slept. Not because of nerves, because of resolve. I thought about every time I'd let her define what mattered, every time I downplayed my achievements so she wouldn't roll her eyes, every time I'd accepted her judgment as truth. I was done with that. The day of the ceremony arrived faster than I expected. I got dressed slowly, carefully. I chose an outfit I'd once thought was too much and wore it anyway. When I stepped into the living room, my sister glanced up. "Where are you going?" she asked. I smiled. "To my stupid award," I said. She rolled her eyes. "Don't be late tonight. We still have things to do." I paused at the door. "I won't be," I replied, "but I might be changed." She laughed. "Sure." I left before she could say anything else. The venue was stunning. Soft lights, quiet music, rows of seats filling slowly with people who looked nervous, excited, hopeful. People like me. I clutched my program and found my seat. My name was printed inside. That alone felt surreal. As the ceremony began, speakers took the stage, sharing stories of resilience, impact, work that mattered. I felt a lump form in my throat. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged somewhere. When they reached my category, my heart pounded so loudly I was sure others could hear it. "And this year's recipient," the presenter said, pausing for effect. I held my breath. "Has demonstrated exceptional dedication, leadership, and integrity." The screen behind her lit up. My photo appeared. My name echoed through the hall. For a moment, everything went silent. Then applause erupted. Thunderous, genuine. I stood, legs shaking, and walked toward the stage. As I accepted the award, the lights felt warm, not blinding. The applause didn't feel hollow. It felt earned. As I stood there, holding the weight of that recognition in my hands, one thought cut through everything else. She should have been here. Not because I needed her approval, but because she'd underestimated me. And tonight, that mistake was about to matter. Because while my sister had dismissed this moment as stupid, she had no idea what this award actually came with. And by the time the night was over, she was going to wish she'd made time after all. The applause followed me all the way back to my seat. Not the polite kind, not the forced kind, the kind that lingers, that swells, that makes your chest ache because it's finally validating something you carried quietly for years. My hands were shaking when I sat down, the award heavy in my lap. I kept running my fingers over the engraved plate, half expecting it to disappear if I stopped touching it. It didn't. It stayed real. The ceremony continued, but I barely heard the rest of it. My mind kept drifting, backward and forward at the same time. Backward, to every moment my work had been minimized. Forward, to the consequences of tonight. Because this wasn't just a plaque and applause. It was leverage. After the ceremony, people approached me, not casually, intentionally. Men and women with confident handshakes and thoughtful questions. People who didn't ask if my work mattered, but how it could be scaled. "I've been following your projects," one woman said. "I didn't realize you were behind that initiative." Another smiled warmly. "Your work changed our department's entire approach." A man in a tailored suit handed me his card. "We should talk. There may be an opportunity you'd be perfect for." I nodded, smiled, thanked them, but inside, something quiet and seismic was happening. For years, my sister had acted like my work existed in a vacuum. Nice, but insignificant. Something I did to feel useful, not something that carried weight.
Tonight proved otherwise. This room didn't see me as background. They saw me as substance.
My phone buzzed in my clutch. I didn't need to look to know who it was. Mom, where are you? Dinner is starting soon. I stared at the message. For a moment, the old instinct tugged at me to apologize, to explain, to rush. Instead, I typed back, I'm still at the ceremony. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then a reply came. Your sister says it's running late. You didn't say it would be this long. I smiled faintly. I didn't know it would be this important, I typed. This time, there was no immediate response. The reception afterwards was elegant but relaxed. Soft lighting, quiet laughter, glasses clinking gently. I stood near the edge of the room at first, observing. Old habits die hard. But then the woman who'd presented my award approached me again. You should come meet someone, she said, resting a hand lightly on my arm. I followed her across the room, heart racing. She introduced me to the executive director of a national organization, someone whose name I'd seen on proposals, grants, press releases. I've heard a lot about you tonight, he said, smiling. We've been looking for someone exactly like you. Exactly like me. Not louder, not bolder, not different. Me. We talked for nearly half an hour about my work, my values, my long-term goals. He didn't interrupt, didn't rush, didn't look past me to someone more impressive. When he finally excused himself, he handed me his card. Call me next week, he said. I think we should explore a partnership. I nodded, pulse pounding. I will, I said. And I meant it. By the time I stepped outside, the city air felt cool against my fleshed skin. I checked my phone again. Missed calls. 3 from my sister, 1 from my mother. I exhaled slowly. I wasn't avoiding them. I was choosing myself. The drive home felt different than any I'd taken before. The streets were familiar, but my thoughts weren't. I replayed my sister's words in my mind. We don't have time for stupid awards. And I realized something quietly devastating. She hadn't said that because the award didn't matter. She'd said it because I mattered in a way she wasn't ready to acknowledge. When I walked into the house, the dining table was set, candles lit, plates arranged, conversation mid-flow. My sister turned toward the door first. Her smile was tight. You finally decided to show up, she said. I closed the door behind me gently. Yes, I replied. I did. My mother glanced at the award in my hands. Her eyes widened. Oh, she said softly. You won. I nodded. Yes, I said again. The room went quiet. Not awkward. Alert. My sister laughed lightly, but it didn't reach her eyes. Well, she said, congratulations. I'm sure it was nice. I met her gaze. It was, I said. Life-changing, actually. She snorted. That's a bit dramatic. I set the award down on the sideboard, carefully. Is it? I asked. She crossed her arms. It's just an award. I tilted my head. Is that what you think? I asked. She hesitated, just for a second, then shrugged. Awards don't pay the bills. I smiled. This one does, I said. Her expression froze. What do you mean? She asked sharply. I didn't answer right away. I took a seat at the table, unhurried. I mean, I said calmly, that this award comes with a grant, a large one. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. A grant? She asked. Yes, I replied. Funding, resources, national backing. My sister laughed again, but this time there was an edge to it. Okay, she said. So what? That doesn't change anything. I met her eyes. It changes everything, I said. Just not for you. Her face reddened. Don't get smug, she snapped. You went to one ceremony. I nodded and walked out with opportunities you've been chasing for years.
I said gently. Silence slammed into the room. My mother looked between us, confused. "What does that mean?" she asked. My sister opened her mouth. Closed it. I continued. "The organization that awarded me tonight," I said, "they're restructuring, expanding, and they've asked me to lead one of the initiatives." My sister's chair scraped loudly against the floor as she stood. "That's not true," she said. I met her gaze steadily. "It is," I replied. "And here's the part you didn't have time for." I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. Inside was a letter. Offer details, projected scope, funding numbers. I slid it across the table. My sister stared at it, didn't touch it. My mother picked it up instead, eyes widening as she read. "Oh my God," she whispered. My sister grabbed the paper from her hands. Her eyes scanned it quickly, then again, then slower. Her face drained of color. "This has to be a mistake," she said. I shook my head. "It's not." She looked up at me, anger flaring. "So you're just going to throw this in my face?" she demanded. I stood. "No," I said. "I'm going to stop shrinking so you feel comfortable." Her mouth opened, closed. "You think this makes you better than me?" she asked. I took a breath. "No," I said. "I think it makes me done pretending I'm less." The words hung between us. My mother looked shaken. My sister looked furious. But beneath the fury, something else surfaced. Fear. She pushed the papers back toward me. "Fine," she said. "Good for you. Don't expect me to clap." I smiled. "I don't," I said. "They already did." She stared at me like she'd never seen me before. And in that moment, I realized something that settled deep in my bones.
The award hadn't changed me. It had revealed me. And that revelation was something my sister couldn't dismiss, mock, or belittle anymore. Because tonight, she learned the truth. She hadn't been standing above me all these years. She'd just been standing louder. And for the first time, the room had gone quiet enough for everyone to hear the difference. The silence after that was unbearable. Not the calm kind, not the reflective kind, the kind that vibrates with things unsaid. My sister stood there, arms folded so tightly across her chest it looked like she was physically holding herself together. My mother remained seated, hands clasped in her lap, eyes flicking between us like she was watching a fragile structure threaten to collapse. I picked up my bag. "I'm going to put this away," I said calmly, nodding toward the award on the sideboard. "We can eat after." No one stopped me. That, more than anything else, told me how much had shifted. When I came back into the dining room, the food had gone cold. No one had touched their plates. My sister finally sat back down, but she didn't look at me. She stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. "You really think this changes things?" she said flatly. I took my seat. "I know it does. I just don't know how yet." She scoffed. "You always talk like everything is symbolic, like every moment is some big turning point." I nodded slowly. "Maybe that's because I've spent my whole life being told my moments didn't count," I said. My mother inhaled sharply. "That's not fair," she said. I turned to her. "It's not meant to be," I replied. "It's meant to be honest." My sister finally looked at me. "So what now?" she demanded. "You're just going to walk around acting like you're untouchable?" I met her gaze evenly. "No," I said. "I'm going to walk around acting like I belong." That landed harder than I expected. Her lips parted slightly, then pressed together. Dinner resumed in fragments. Polite questions, careful answers, silverware scraping plates too loudly. Every so often, I caught my sister watching me, studying my posture, my tone, the way I no longer rushed to fill silence or soften my words. She was recalculating. I recognized it because I'd done it my entire life. Halfway through the meal, my mother spoke again. "So this new role," she said cautiously,
Is it full-time? Yes, with travel and a team. Her eyes widened. A team?
I nodded. They want me to build one, I said, from the ground up. My sister let out a sharp laugh. Of course they do, she muttered. Everyone wants you now. I looked at her. Not now, I said. They always did. You just didn't hear them. She slammed her fork down. That's enough, she snapped. You don't get to rewrite history because you had one good night. I felt my chest tighten, but not with fear, with resolve. This wasn't one night, I said quietly. This was years of work you chose not to see. You could have told me, she shot back. You could have said something. I tilted my head. I did, I said. You laughed. Her face flushed. That was different, she said. You never explained it like this. I shook my head. I shouldn't have to justify my worth for it to be real, I replied. The room went still again. My mother stared at the table. After dinner, my sister followed me into the kitchen. Are you trying to humiliate me? She asked under her breath. I turned slowly. No, I said, but I'm done protecting your ego at the expense of my own. Her eyes flashed. You think I don't work hard? She hissed. I think you do, and I think you learned to survive by being louder than everyone else. She froze. You don't know what it was like for me, she said. I studied her face, really looked. I know it was different, but different doesn't mean harder. Her breath hitched. You've always played the victim, she said weakly. I shook my head. I've always played invisible, I replied. There's a difference. She turned away, gripping the counter. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said, very quietly, I didn't think you'd ever outgrow me. The word stunned me. Outgrow. I felt something shift inside my chest. I wasn't trying to, I said. I was just trying to grow. That night, after I left, my phone buzzed again, a message from my mother. I didn't realize how much you carried. I stared at the screen for a long time, then replied, neither did I. The days that followed were strange. People reached out. Colleagues, former partners, even acquaintances I hadn't spoken to in years. They'd seen the announcement, read the press release, heard about the award. They spoke to me differently now, with curiosity, with respect, with interest that wasn't laced with condescension. It was validating and also unsettling because it made something painfully clear. The world hadn't changed. My visibility had. My sister went quiet. No texts, no calls, no snide remarks filtered through my mother. At first, I worried. Then I realized something. For the first time, she didn't know where she stood relative to me, and instead of lashing out, she withdrew. A week later, my mother asked if we could talk, just the two of us. We sat in her living room, the same space where so many of my accomplishments had been downplayed in favor of keeping things balanced. I owe you an apology, she said softly. I didn't respond right away. I didn't mean to make you feel small, she continued. I just didn't want conflict between you and your sister. I nodded. I know, I said. But I see now, she added, that avoiding conflict meant avoiding you. My throat tightened. I never wanted to choose sides, she said. I met her gaze. You already did, I replied gently. You just didn't call it that. She nodded slowly, tears filling her eyes. I'm proud of you, she said. I should have said that a long time ago. I let the words sink in. They didn't erase the past, but they softened it. The real confrontation with my sister came 2 weeks later. She asked to meet. Neutral place, public, controlled. We sat across from each other at a cafe, the hum of conversation surrounding us. You embarrassed me, she said without preamble. I nodded. I know. You made me feel like everything I've done means nothing, she continued. I leaned forward slightly. That wasn't my intention, I said,
But if your sense of worth depends on me staying small, that's not something I can fix." She stared at her coffee. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said finally. I believed her. "I know," I replied, "but intent doesn't erase impact." She swallowed. "I don't know how to be your sister now," she admitted. I softened. "Neither do I," said, "but it can't be built on dismissal." She nodded slowly. For the first time in my life, she didn't argue. That night, alone in my apartment, I placed the award on my shelf. Not prominently, not hidden, just present. A reminder, not of success, but of permission. Permission to take up space. Permission to be proud. Permission to stop asking for approval. My sister had sneered at my award ceremony invite, called it stupid, insignificant, a waste of time. But that night changed everything, not because I won an award, but because I stopped letting her define what mattered. And in doing so, I finally stepped out of her shadow, not to compete, but to exist fully in my own light. The shift didn't happen all at once. It happened in the pauses, in the way conversations slowed when I entered a room, in the way people stopped finishing my sentences for me, in the way my sister no longer spoke over me because she wasn't sure she could. Power doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just quietly rearranges the room. The first real test came when the press coverage went live. I hadn't sought it out. I hadn't called anyone. The organization handled everything: press releases, interviews, feature blurbs buried in professional newsletters my sister absolutely read. I didn't send her the link. I didn't need to. She found it on her own. I knew because my phone buzzed at 6:42 a.m. A message from her. "Did you talk to reporters?" I stared at the screen, half amused, half tired. "No," I typed back. "They talked to me." 3 dots appeared.
Then, disappeared. Then, "You didn't mention me at all." I closed my eyes slowly. "Why would I?" I replied. That question sat unanswered for hours. Later that day, my mother called. "They used your full name," she said, awe threaded through her voice. "They listed all your projects. I didn't realize how much you'd done." I leaned against the kitchen counter. "I didn't either," I said quietly, "not until I stopped minimizing it." She exhaled. "Your sister saw it." "I know." "She hasn't said anything to me," my mother added. "That's unusual." I smiled faintly. "She's recalibrating," I said. Recalibrating was the perfect word, because my sister didn't explode. She didn't lash out. She didn't post anything passive-aggressive. She did something far more revealing. She watched. At the next family gathering, she arrived early. She always arrived late, fashionably, deliberately, like she wanted to enter on her own terms. This time, she was already there when I walked in. She looked up, paused, then smiled carefully. "Hey," she said, "there she is." There she is. Not, "You finally showed up." Not, "Nice of you to join us." Acknowledgement. I nodded. "Hey." She stepped aside so I could pass into the room. It was a small gesture, but it landed. The conversation that followed was different. When relatives asked me questions, she didn't interrupt. When someone congratulated me, she didn't change the subject. When my mother praised my work, she didn't counterbalance it with a compliment for someone else. She sat there, listening. And for the first time, I realized how often she'd used noise to maintain control. Silence for her was new. Later that evening, she pulled me aside. "I don't like how people are treating me," she said bluntly. I raised an eyebrow. "How are they treating you?" "Like I'm secondary," she said. "Like I'm not the impressive one anymore."
I studied her. That's how I've felt my entire life, I replied calmly. She flinched. I didn't do that on purpose, she said quickly. I know, I replied, but you benefited from it. She opened her mouth, closed it, then sighed. I don't know who I am if I'm not the successful one. The honesty startled me. You're still successful, I said. You're just not the only one anymore. She rubbed her temples. I don't like it, she admitted. I smiled gently. Growth rarely feels comfortable. She laughed once, short, humorless. You always sound like you're giving a keynote speech now, she muttered. I shrugged. I spent years not speaking at all. The real fallout came at work. Not mine, hers. She worked in a field where reputation mattered, where perception translated into influence, and suddenly people were asking her about me. Isn't that your sister? She's doing incredible things. You must be proud. At first, she smiled through it. Then it started to sting, because pride, when mixed with comparison, becomes complicated. One evening, she showed up at my apartment unannounced. No makeup, hair pulled back, eyes tired. I hate that I'm jealous, she said the moment I opened the door. I stepped aside to let her in. That's honest, I replied. She dropped onto my couch. I worked my entire life to be exceptional, and you did it quietly, without needing approval. I sat across from her. I didn't do it without needing approval, I said. I just stopped waiting for yours. She looked at me sharply. That's what hurts, she said. I thought you needed me. I considered that. I needed safety, I said, not hierarchy. She nodded slowly. I don't know how to be in a relationship without being the benchmark, she admitted. I softened my tone. Then maybe this is your chance to figure that out, I said. She looked away. Not everyone reacted the way she did. Some relatives leaned in hard, suddenly eager to associate with success. That bothered me more than dismissal ever had. I noticed who congratulated me publicly but had never supported me privately. I noticed who reached out with genuine curiosity versus opportunistic enthusiasm. Visibility sharpens discernment. My mother changed too. She stopped downplaying, stopped qualifying compliments, stopped saying but after praise. One night while we were washing dishes together, she said something that made me pause. I didn't protect you the way I should have, she said quietly. I looked at her. I thought keeping things even was fairness, she continued. I didn't realize it was erasure. I swallowed hard. I don't blame you, I said, but I won't carry it anymore. She nodded. I wouldn't ask you to, she replied. That was new. The award itself stopped being the focus. The work took over. Meetings, strategy sessions, budgets, decisions that affected real people. I threw myself into it, not to prove anything, but because I believed in it. And the more grounded I became in my work, the less I cared how it was perceived. That was the real transformation. My sister noticed. You're different, she said one afternoon when we met for coffee again. Am I? I asked. You're solid, she replied. Like you're not waiting for the room to react. I smiled. Because I'm not. She stirred her drink slowly. I used to think confidence came from being admired. Now I think it comes from being anchored. I nodded. That took me a long time to learn. She hesitated. I don't know if I can learn it, she admitted. You don't have to all at once, I said. Just stop trying to outrun everyone else. She laughed softly. That sounds exhausting, she said. It is, I replied. I was tired of watching you do it. She looked at me surprised. I was never chasing you, she said. I met her gaze. I didn't have to, I replied. You just ran loud enough that no one noticed I was moving too. The next family event passed without incident. No tension, no digs, no forced compliments. Just balance. Not equality, balance.
and for the first time, I felt like I could breathe around her. One evening, as I stood in my apartment looking at the award on the shelf, I realized something quietly profound. The recognition hadn't changed my sister. It had revealed her. And in doing so, it had freed both of us from roles we'd outgrown but never questioned. My sister had sneered at my award ceremony invite, dismissed it, mocked it, belittled it. But that night didn't just elevate me. It destabilized a hierarchy that had gone unquestioned for years. And in the space where that hierarchy collapsed, something healthier had the chance to form. Not rivalry, not resentment, the truth. Part 4 wasn't about triumph. It was about adjustment, about learning how to stand in a room where the power dynamic has shifted and choosing not to abuse it. About watching someone who once overshadowed you learn how to see you clearly, and about realizing that recognition isn't about being seen by the loudest person in your life. It's about finally seeing yourself. The night everything finally settled wasn't dramatic. There was no argument, no apology scene that wrapped everything up neatly, no moment where my sister suddenly transformed into someone else. It was quieter than that. And because of that, it was real. A few months after the ceremony, life stopped feeling like it was orbiting that moment. The award stopped being the thing people talked about. The press faded, the emails slowed. What remained was the work, and I loved that. I woke up early, not out of anxiety, but purpose. I traveled, I built teams, I made decisions that mattered to people who would never know my name, and that felt strangely perfect. For the first time in my life, I wasn't performing for recognition. I was living inside it. My sister watched all of this from a careful distance. She didn't sabotage, she didn't compete, she didn't praise excessively. She adjusted. And that adjustment told me more than any apology ever could. One afternoon, she asked if I wanted to walk with her. Just a walk, no agenda. We strolled through the neighborhood we'd grown up in, past the park where she used to run ahead and I used to trail behind, unnoticed but observant. She broke the silence first. "I thought success was about being undeniable," she said. I waited. Loud enough that no one could question it, big enough that people had to look. I nodded slowly. "And now?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "Now I think real success is being steady," she said. "You don't wobble, even when people try to push." I glanced at her. "That took me years," I replied. She kicked a pebble along the sidewalk. "I was afraid of you," she admitted. The honesty startled me. "Why?" I asked. "Because you didn't need the same things I did," she said. "I thought if you ever realized how capable you were, I'd disappear." I stopped walking. She stopped too. "You didn't disappear," I said gently. "You just stopped being the only one in the room." She swallowed. "I didn't know how to share space," she said. "I only knew how to dominate it." I nodded. "And I only knew how to shrink," I replied. "We both learned survival the wrong way." She looked at me then, not defensively, not competitively, but with something like clarity. "I'm sorry," she said. No qualifiers, no excuses, no laughter. Just 2 words. They landed softly, and they mattered. That was the moment I knew something had changed permanently. Not because she apologized, but because she saw me, not as a rival, not as a background character, not as someone to manage, as an equal. Our relationship didn't become perfect after that. We didn't suddenly become close in the way movies promise, but it became honest, and honesty, I learned, is far rarer and far more valuable than harmony built on silence. At the next family gathering, something subtle happened. When someone asked about my work, my sister didn't wait for me to downplay it. She said, "She's leading a national initiative now." No sarcasm, no edge, just fact. I smiled, and for the first time, it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like balance. Later that evening, my mother pulled me aside. "I see you now," she said quietly. I studied her face. "I always saw you," she continued, "but I didn't know how to make room for you without feeling like I was taking something away from her." I nodded.
"You don't have to divide pride," I said. "It multiplies." She smiled sadly. "I wish I'd learned that sooner." "So do I," I replied. But there was no bitterness in it anymore, just truth. That night, back in my apartment, I stood in front of the shelf where the award sat. Not polished, not spotlighted, just there. A symbol, yes, but not of achievement, of permission. Permission to take up space. Permission to be proud without apology. Permission to stop shrinking for the sake of peace. I thought about that first moment again. The sneer, the laugh, the words, "We don't have time for stupid awards." I understood them differently now. They hadn't been about the award at all. They had been about fear. Fear of a shift. Fear of change. Fear of a quiet person realizing their power. The irony? The award wasn't what changed my life. My response to it was. I went anyway. I stood up. I accepted recognition without flinching. I stopped minimizing. And in doing so, I rewrote a story that had followed me my entire life. People often ask me now how it felt to be dismissed, then proven right. I always tell them the same thing. It wasn't about proving anything. It was about stopping myself from disappearing. My sister no longer sneers when I talk about my work. She listens. Sometimes she even asks questions. Not because she needs to measure herself against me, but because she's learning how to be curious instead of competitive. And I'm learning how to be visible without guilt. There are still moments where old habits try to resurface, where I feel the urge to soften, to defer, to step aside. But now I recognize that urge for what it is, a relic, not a rule. That night, the night she dismissed my award ceremony, set something in motion she couldn't control. Not revenge, not rivalry. Awareness. And awareness is irreversible. I didn't rise above her. I rose into myself. And once I did, there was room for both of us. My sister sneered at my award ceremony invite. She called it stupid. She thought it didn't matter. But that night mattered more than either of us realized, because it marked the moment I stopped asking for permission to be proud. And when I finally stepped into the light, I didn't outshine her. I just stopped standing in her shadow.